Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dice Cast. I am Russell, and with me I have.
Fishman.
Well, last we left off, Aquans and Jonas were continuing their journeys towards the north, towards the Elven lands,
Yep.
when their rest was disrupted for quite possibly the first time in quite a while. They found themselves rendered unconscious, and then their magical hut, which they take shelter in each night, dragged below into the underground area where they were attacked by bizarre subterranean creatures who were in the service of some other unusual subterranean creatures that seemed to be taking people from the surface as
All because someone on watch wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing.
all because of a natural one. These people were taken prisoner and used as both slave labor and sacrifices to some bizarre extraplanar entity which resembled a serpent made of light. Fortunately, Aquans and Jonas were able to exploit the subterranean creature's fear of bright light to their advantage, and they were able to make their escape after dispatching many of them and freeing the prisoners.
Yay.
Setting them up with food and supplies, they sent them on their way to the nearest location, which would have been Blackburn Hamlet, the village they just left.
Mhm.
And then Aquans and Jonas decided to head somewhere to take a much needed rest after that grueling encounter in the underground.
Barely got scratched.
Barely got scratched. That's one of us. So, if I remember correctly, we had searched for a campsite. We didn't find one that was on solid rock like we initially looked for.
Yeah.
However, we did find one, and we'll be picking up at that at this long rest then.
All right. Cool. So, set
So,
camp.
yeah, we set up camp. We have the campfire. We have the alarm. We have the huts. Not that they seem to be infallible.
No. Well, they are when you're awake.
Yeah.
Well, you are probably the worst off for our little group.
Yes.
So why don't you have a nap? And because you're uh, down a few hit points, why don't I try and make another greater healing potion while you're having the snooze?
All right. So, by the sounds of it, you're taking first watch.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's roll your perception check then. To start with.
Hopefully I don't end up with a pair of ones. Oh, natural 20. Just to rub it in.
Well, this isn't staying awake yet. This is just being observing.
Yep, I'm very observant
You
today.
are very observant. You hear every cricket, every mouse, field mouse. You hear every owl in the trees that isn't yours, looking for its prey for the evening.
Yep. And I'm kicking myself that I didn't make the potion beforehand because that,
You're aware of all of it, and you're wishing, oh, if only I was this good at making potions.
yep.
At which point, I assume you want to move on to making the potion.
Now that I've blown that natural 20, why not? I'll get up my little cauldron.
Yeah, at least that gives you
And,
advantage.
yep. Not a nat 20, but enough to actually succeed.
All right, so you manage to complete on your watch, and you complete making a greater healing potion, of which we have gone through quite a few recently.
Yes, you took a beating. I still have one more mandrake, so maybe tomorrow I'll make another one.
Yep.
And then we're out. No more mandrake for a bit.
All right then. So I assume you wake me for my watch now.
Nothing, if nothing else happens. Yeah,
All right.
my rest.
Yes. So you go into your rest. All right. Well, I have something that was interrupted last time I was working on.
Yes.
I had a scroll of banishment that I was working on.
Yeah, 2 more hours before to finish that up.
Yes. So let's roll for my watch. Well, I also have a natural 20.
Ugh.
And during the night, I am able to finish my scroll.
Right.
There were only a couple hours left, so I'll just stay awake and keep my eye out then while the scroll dries, basically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as soon as it's done,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not anything but it's magic.
Yes. So I finished the scroll, so now I have a scroll of banishment to use.
Cool. So yeah, morning comes, I assume.
Morning comes, an uneventful night this time.
At
It's probably
dawn,
a good thing.
my wand of magic missiles recharges.
Yep.
The ring of the ram only gains back 2 charges, so I am going to swap that out for my ring of spell storing.
Okay. Do you even remember what's on the ring of spellstoring?
Yep. Would you like to know?
Sure.
Bigby's hand.
That's it.
That's it.
All right, you have one spell on the ring of spellstoring at the moment.
Well, yeah, that's all.
It's storing your biggest and probably favorite spell.
Yeah. Well, the thing
Well,
is,
I have good portents for the day.
cool.
Hopefully that translates into actually means things will go well today.
All right, break camp, have breakfast, knock off a day's worth of food.
Yes.
By the way, due to my decision to,
Yeah, we have a lot less now.
yeah, uh,
We have less than a full month's worth of food left.
well, it seemed kind of wrong to send them off into the wilds with no food at all.
True.
So, yeah, I'm down a lot of food.
We have enough, and we can do some foraging and hunting if we need to.
Yeah, we used to do that back in the day.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll have to do that again.
All right. So we have breakfast. We break our campsite, and we're ready to continue on with our adventure.
Cool. Let's do so.
All right. Well, let's go for a survival check.
Yeah, because we were off course because of their little encounter with those buddies there.
Yes. See if we can get back on track.
Um, 19.
All right. From that roll, you are able to discern that we aren't too far off course,
Yeah,
but we are indeed off course.
yeah,
We basically, if I remember correctly, ended up heading almost perpendicular to the plateau, so we're heading backwards almost.
yeah. We lost a bit of ground, and we were sort of heading in the southwesterly direction.
However, with that roll, we are able to reorientate ourselves and we head on for the day's travel.
Off we go. And while I walk,
Yeah.
I, whenever I have a chance, I am going to check for any kind of medicinal herbs and or mushrooms that I see, because we are running low.
All right. This will be, well, by the sounds of it, this is perception because we're not stopping to search. You're just keeping your eye out.
Yep.
All right. So I assume you have your familiar to assist with that.
Oh yeah.
All right. Give us a roll then.
And like an owl for visual perception. She's going to fly all over the bloody place looking for this.
All right. Perception check with advantage.
I guess she's got a little blurry eye today. 14.
Okay. Your owl keeps her eye out for any of the herbs which you are mentally instructing her to look for, and you're giving her mental pictures to look for. There's a bit of an inconsistency between between what your alchemical and herbal knowledge compared to her ability to recognize such things.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that disconnect causes a bit of an issue. You don't seem to find any, though there could just be not any in the immediate area.
Yeah.
However, your owl does notice something because it's relatively obvious.
Okay.
In the distance, there seems to be a group of people riding on horseback at great speed.
Galloping in what direction?
Well, basically, we're kind of going north or north. Yeah, basically almost right, basically north at this point. They're
Yep.
kind of coming on a southwesterly direction from the north.
All right. So we are roughly about here,
Yeah.
heading north, and
Yeah.
they're heading this way.
Uh, yeah, it's probably a bit more west than south, but yes.
So just almost like cutting across our path.
Yeah, they're almost, we might actually intersect at some point, but that's
Uh,
what she notices.
okay.
They're a distance off at the moment.
And what do you have any discerning characteristics that stand out?
You see some light glinting off something, so suspect they might be wearing armor. In fact, you think the horses also have some armor on them.
Okay. Armor.
So metal armor and probably a fair bit of it and high quality by the looks of it, the amount of light reflecting, I guess.
Shiny.
Yeah, it is shiny.
I'll pass that on to you.
Okay. Apart from that, it's a lovely, warm spring day at the moment.
Well,
Hmm.
let's continue for the moment, but when they
Yeah.
get close, we should probably think about not being obvious.
All right. So we're going to just continue for the time being.
And as they get closer, we'll find a copse of trees or a hillock or something to hit, basically hide ourselves until we can find out whether they're friends, foes, or just people.
All right. Well, we continue on for about the next 2 hours.
Wow, they were ways off.
They're a ways off. They're still a distance, despite the fact that they probably are moving faster than us. However, you cannot whip horses up to great speed for long periods of time.
No. Yeah. It has to
Yeah.
slow down pretty fast.
Especially not a horse that is A, wearing armor, and B, carrying someone in armor.
Yeah.
So, despite the fact they might have to stop at some point to let the horses rest, or at least let them go at a slower speed, whereas we're going at a constant pace.
Yeah, I mean, you can run a horse for maybe a mile or two, but after that, you gotta let it trot.
Yeah. Well, they're at a distance at the moment. They seem to be at one of those trotting phases, and we do come upon a copse of trees and something else.
What's that?
Well, it looks like, well, basically almost like a valley, but the valley has a basically almost like, well, to sound familiar, almost like a crater or some sort of basically curvature in the ground, like that goes down further.
Okay. I don't see any demigods around, do I?
No, the first thing to notice is it isn't that as big as that valley we encountered previously. It's much smaller. It's
Yeah.
basically almost like there's a glade, and in this depression in the earth, there are some tents set up,
Yep.
and there's lots of tools out, and there's lots of things. Those just like a dig site. And there's one other thing that stands out, and we can move ahead to the next image. Yeah, as you can probably. Now, just bear in mind, as I said earlier, it's a nice, sunny, warm spring day, and yet there seems to be
An ice cave.
an ice cave in this depression in the earth.
Okay, as
And
I'm standing here gawping at this unexpected sight,
yes,
um, are the horsemen galloping or trotting or whatever they're currently doing in that direction towards there?
roll an intelligence check, unless you want to actually have your owl fly up and take a look, in which case it could be perception.
21.
21. They seem to be heading in the same this direction. In fact, we'll if they're probably not too far off at this point, you suspect.
Okay.
Yes.
These tents and tools and people, is there anything about them that strike me as interesting?
All right. There are tents, there's a campsite, and there are tools, and there are various things that almost makes this like an archaeological dig site, but you do not see any people here.
I'm gonna have my owl do a close flyby over those tents and
Yeah.
stuff.
And yes, the cave there is indeed frozen over, and the ground in the nearby vicinity is iced over, despite the fact of being spring, and it doesn't start to melt until it gets probably about 15, maybe 20 feet away from the mouth of the cave. And there is like frosted air coming out of the cave as well.
How big is this cave?
Fairly sizable.
All right. If I take this as a tent that can hold, maybe two, three, four people,
Yeah.
uh, that's got to be at least 20 feet across.
Yep. Bit like that, yeah.
All right.
And as your owl flies over, I
Yep.
assume you're having her make a perception check.
Well, I'm gonna look through her eyes too.
Yep, we're gonna look through her eyes. I'm going to ask, are you also going to look to see if those riders are coming this way or not?
Both.
Yeah. All right. Roll then.
Oh, she's awake now. 22.
22. All right. So your owl flies over, I assume staying relatively high up and using her owl-like vision.
Well, I want her to be close enough that she can perceive if there's any like uh people that are, bodies, people that are hiding, hopefully, maybe pick up that, or whether this is abandoned. Also pick out if there's, recent campfire or signs of any kind of habitation.
Mhm.
So not too high.
All right. So your owl flies by. The tents seem to be empty. There is a campsite there. Doesn't look too old. There is a basically like there's basically a fire pit with a camp with logs and kindling
Yeah.
that looks like it's been used and lit previously, though it is dead at the moment. And you don't see anyone. She does notice the cave, and as she nears it, you through her senses feel the air literally get colder.
Oh, and I was getting used to that being warm.
All right, and now for the riders, you do indeed see them coming in this direction, and they seem to have resumed moving at some speed again.
How long do I figure before they get here?
Uh, 15, 20 minutes possibly.
That's a fair amount of time. How
Yep.
long would it take me to get to where that cave is from our current position?
5 minutes.
All right, yep, for a little trot.
Yep, we can go down there and take a look ourselves because a lot of the clues we might need to look for in this campsite and that cave are going to need a more thorough search, not just a glance, you suspect.
All right, I will unsummon my owl and
Yep.
then we'll go for a morning jog.
Mhm. All right.
Get there as quickly as we can without, exhausting ourselves.
All right. Well, like I said, we have time. So are we heading towards the campsite or the cave? I
I
know they're in the relatively the same direction.
am going to split the difference.
All right.
Run right up the middle until I see something of interest in either direction.
All right. And we are jogging up to the cave, you said.
Yep.
All right. So, brisk run. I'm just going to ask for a perception check on each of our parts.
Oh, I'm wasting all these good rolls.
Okay.
Uh, I don't have perception, so 20.
20. All right. I have a 21. While we're jogging up, we can start to see out of the corner eye in the distance the riders coming up,
Yep.
and you think they might have spotted us.
Okay.
Right? All right. So as we approach this site here, it is indeed look like a dig site at the side of an ice cave.
Where do I think they're digging as I'm running up here? Are they digging in the ice cave or are they digging outside the ice cave?
A bit of both. You do see that there are some things set up here. The tents, if you actually glance inside them, look like they're mostly being used like most archaeologists will have a tent or an area where they basically have set up like a study or a laboratory, something where they can examine artifacts they've brought up.
Yep.
And these seem to be that plus possibly some sleeping quarters.
And no people.
No, we don't see anyone.
Did anything catch my eye as we approached the cave?
Uh, there's a radius of ice around it, emanating outwards, and like I said, until you get about 15 feet away from the mouth of the cave, the ice doesn't start to melt. There is literally a section of it where It's frozen, and then the past there is just water.
Okay, I'm gonna use some of my all and commander to fly into the cave and go in about, well, not too far. Just see
Mhm.
if there's anything there and then come back.
All right. So your owl is going to fly into the cave.
Yep.
All right. How far do you want to go into the cave?
I don't know how deep it is, so I don't know. 20, 30 feet, turn around.
All right. So your owl goes in 30 feet. It is dark and it is very cold in the cave.
Yep.
Uh, It's, well, clearly it's below zero because it's all iced over in there.
Yep.
And there is ice covering the ground, including the rocky ground.
Yep.
And there are icicles hanging down from the roof all over the place. And there doesn't appear to be any obvious light from inside the cave. All the light's coming from outside.
Any obvious inhabitants?
Not that far in, no.
And
Seems
from that, do I see it continue quite a ways,
it
or
does continue for quite a ways, yes.
I'm gonna take a couple minutes, and I want to examine this camp to see if there's anything in here that might give some clue to why they're bothering with this.
All right, roll an investigation check with my assistance then.
Uh, 17.
All right,
Oh no, it's gone up. Sorry, 18. Keep forgetting that.
18. All right.
I gotta get used to that by now. It's been up. It's gone up to 4 for a while.
All right, so we search the campsite.
Just quick search.
Yeah.
Just want to get an idea of what kind of artifacts they're dealing with and what interest this has. But I want to be, I want to do something before those guys get here. And you said we only had what, 10 minutes most?
We had about 15 to 20 minutes before we jogged down here. We have less now, yes.
All right, so yeah, I want to do something.
Yeah. Bear in mind that we uh, had to run here. You sent your owl in there, now we're doing a search. Even quickly, this is probably going to eat up half that time, at least.
That's fine. Just want to do it fast.
Okay.
And probably get into that cave before they get here.
All right. All right. So, starting with the tents, as we're searching,
Yep.
we find various tools and various books and various crates of various rocks and artifacts brought up,
Yep.
most of which are relatively intact. This doesn't look like this site hasn't been abandoned for long, is what you're thinking.
But the artifacts.
Yes. Some of
What's
them,
what in the world is so special about this that they're bothering to set up an archaeological dig?
I mean, other than the fact that there's an ice cave in the middle of.
Yeah, but ice cave, besides, making me think of, maybe a frost dragon or white dragon, I guess. I don't really see this as an archaeological thing unless there's something to do with maybe a past civilization or something. And I want to see if there's any, like, quickly, just have a look to see if there's anything in these artifacts that indicate something that's, ancient.
Well, some of it does look relatively old, and that does mean some of it's not necessarily the most intact, but none of it really catches our specific eye. We can both roll history checks if you want.
Well, I want to look at it in the eye of we have had experiences and even visual ones of pre-fall. So I
Yep.
want to know if this is pre-fall stuff.
All right. So that would be a history check.
Ugh, terrible.
What'd you roll?
9.
All right. I have a 23
Eh,
because I do have history as a skill.
I do not.
All right. Like I said, well, just looking at some of this stuff here, it is old. I don't know if it's pre-fall or not. So it's not quite that old, I do not think. However, I do recognize some of these, the materials, some of these stones, and some of the glyphs and writings on this.
Yeah.
We've encountered some of this once before. So
And
we encounter the underground facility we encountered on the plateau all that time, all so long ago, had similar architecture and writings to this. I think this might be another Delirian outpost.
I was about to say because that was a Lyrian one there.
Yep.
All right, that's enough. All I needed to know.
Mhm. Oh, also one more thing, we did examine the campsite, and while the fires obviously died down and there's bedrolls there and stuff, it looks like it was set up for the fact someone would come back and someone didn't. But like on the outset, maybe a week since.
Okay, there are two ways this could have happened.
Yeah.
They left,
Yes.
means everything will be nice and neat.
Yeah.
Or something came out of the cave and there was a struggle and they got pulled into the cave, which means things will be in disarray.
It looks like it's all set up as if people were coming expected to come back to it.
All right, so they left voluntarily, not dragged off kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
All right, into the cave we go
All
before they.
right. So we head into the cave,
Yep.
and as we approach the way, we do indeed feel ice underneath our feet as we approach it, and
You do, do you?
well, I have boots for that, so we do have to move a bit carefully, and it gets colder quite quickly.
Yep.
The temperature plummets the closer we get to the cave, and we're not even inside yet.
All right, I'll pull out my big woolen cloak that I use for winter.
That you were not expecting to need in the middle of spring.
Nope. Good thing for bags of holding.
Yep.
I'll wrap myself in that, but I'm gonna leave my stone to Constitution saving
Okay.
throws for the moment.
So we are at the mouth of the cave,
Yep.
and we can hear the approaching of galloping hooves on horses.
All right.
Are we gonna go into the cave, mouth of the cave then?
Yeah.
All right. And if I remember correctly, you unsummoned your, you know, you didn't unsummon your familiar.
I did unsummon my familiar, yes.
All right. So she's not here. All right. We go into the cave. The light of day outside only reaches about 10 feet into the mouth of this cave. Past there, it's going to get darker and darker.
Well, I will cast light on the end of my staff.
Yes. And as we've said before, that will certainly serve as a light source, but people will be able to see that both inside the cave and possibly from outside.
Well, they'll be able to see us unless we go far in and there's a turn or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
All right, so
but
we're waiting in the inside of the cave. How far are we going in?
I'm just going in.
Okay.
Once I get in, what do I see?
All right. Well, it is basically a cave with is literally iced over everywhere.
Okay.
There's
Yep.
rock beneath our feet, but it is covered in frost and ice and snow.
All right.
And there are like countless icicles hanging down from the ceiling.
Okay. Does this cave look like something that's been here, or is this something that looks like it might have been created?
So you're asking if this is a natural cave.
Yeah, because well, I mean, obviously this is just a graphic, so it's hard to tell. But does this actually look like it should be here?
This is the best I could find. This
Yep.
sounds like a nature check.
Yeah, I got that. Ugh, bad numbers. Um, 12.
Well, we've been in a few caves. We haven't been in many ice caves. But this looks like a natural cave. The only thing that stands out about it is how cold it is and the fact that everything is iced over.
You have detect magic prepared?
I do not have it prepared, no.
All right, never
I can
mind.
ritual cast it.
Nope, take too long. We'll be here long before then.
In fact, as you say that,
Yeah,
we hear the sounds of the horses of riders on horseback from outside.
all right, just keep walking.
Okay, we're gonna keep going. Okay.
Do they? I mean, if I turn around, do I see them?
Uh, no, they seem not at the moment. We can hear them from outside.
Okay. I would like to get further into the cave before they decide to take interest in us.
All right. So we go further into the cave. It's about this point that we're basically at the point where your owl was.
Yeah.
Is this deep enough, or do you want to keep going further?
Well, I'm gonna keep going until we have something we can actually, you know, hide behind, or I see something of interest.
All right. Well, technically, this is a natural cave, the way it looks of it. So it's not a straight, solid walls. There are crevices you could possibly hide behind and hide in, but you have a very bright light source on the end of your staff in a cave which is covered in ice, which reflects light very well.
Yep.
So we could attempt to hide here if you want, if that's what you want to do.
Not so much hide as this not be easily observed.
All right. Are we going to do anything about them out there, or are we just waiting?
Well, do it. I haven't heard any. I want to actually listen first, see if I hear any noise from inside the cave.
All right. Roll a perception check. It's a cave, so sound would carry quite well.
Better because uh, 10.
Nope. You don't hear any noises from inside the cave. It is as silent as the fall of snow.
Everything else is going to require investigation checks, so I don't really
Yes.
want to do that just yet. So we'll hunker down in a crevice,
Yeah.
uh, extinguish our light spells.
All right. So you extinguish your light cantrip
So
in the dark.
we'll be in the dark, but we'll be looking towards the entrance, which is well lit.
Yes. So we can. So about 30. So the light only comes in about 10 feet of the cave, and we are about 30 feet into the cave at this point where your owl was, and we're hiding behind crevices. So we can see light in the distance.
30 feet's not distance. 30 feet's,
Yeah, you know what I mean.
huh?
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is some light out there. You hear. Well, let's see what you hear. We need a fresh perception check this time with my assistance.
Your assistance was a 1. 17.
17. No, my assistance was the 17, but whatever. We just never mind. Not important. We hear a relatively imperious voice say, "Well, they couldn't have gone. Well, they couldn't have gone far. They've either fled or they're in the cave. Search the campsite. We need to find out what happened here." Says, hear another voice say, "Yes, my lord."
Someone's full of themselves.
Yep. We hear the sound of well, people in armor clanking around outside as they're
Yeah.
yeah.
What a surprise.
Needless to say, this is metal armored. This is some of the louder variety.
Okay.
Sounds like they're doing what we did.
Yeah. Did that imperious sounding individual also sound benevolent? Or just sound like, oh, we got to get these guys kind of, were they more aggressive?
Roll an insight check.
Oh, I am rolling all over the map today.
Okay,
6.
6. Didn't really sound benevolent or malevolent. It's hard to say. Sounded like someone who's used to giving orders and them being obeyed. That's the best you can tell.
Yeah. So arrogant.
All right. We also hear at least one set of footsteps coming up to the cave, we think.
Okay. If I
So
remember.
now would be a good time to roll our stealth checks.
Oh, yeah. Let's see how well we hid.
Yeah. How did you roll?
16.
I rolled an 8. So
Oh, you get bonuses.
yes, I do.
Oh, that's the total?
Yes. Now it is dark in here.
Do we get advantage?
No, I'm going to give them disadvantage to see on this.
All right.
All right. So we do get to see this person as they come in, and they're basically silhouetted by the daylight from outside. They're basically just stepping up to the mouth of the cave to look in,
Yep.
and they're literally putting a hand on the wall to like steady themselves.
Okay.
We see, well, basically, for all intents and purposes, someone who fits the description of the word a knight.
All in plate mail.
Someone head to toe in plate mail, has a visor up, has livery
Yeah.
uh, all along their built into their suit of armor as well, like a tabard of it. Has a sword at their belt, visor up, and is looking in. Human, you think?
Well, we're not exactly noobs to the outside world. Do we recognize the livery of any particular court? Or,
Well, we would certainly recognize the livery of the court that we are used to dealing with.
yep.
Uh, this would be a straight intelligence check, I believe.
I better start rolling good soon. 10.
We don't really recognize it, so we're fairly certain it's no one associated with the court and no one from Lyria. That's about as we can guess.
Yeah. All right. If I remember correctly,
Mhm.
you can, as a basically at will, acquire dark vision.
Yes, I can.
Well, I can switch my stone to dark vision as well if we decide we want to go further into this without, giving ourselves completely and totally away with a big light spell.
Yes. At the moment, as far as we can tell, this individual has not seen us. Just looking into the cave, and the darkness seems to be our friend at the moment. Says, I don't see anything in the cave of note, my lord. Says over his shoulder. Says, "Well, get back here." Says, "We can't afford to split up." Says, "We need to find out what happened here." And with that, the knight walks off to rejoin his lord, apparently.
All right.
We don't know exactly for certain, but based on the numbers of riders we saw, we suspect we think you remember seeing about five, maybe six riders before.
Okay. So they're investigating a disappearance.
But it sounds of it. Maybe they know something about this dig site.
We are curious.
Yes.
We
So,
did not see signs of a struggle.
not outside.
All right. I want to.
Mhm.
Well, actually, he went away, right?
Yes, at the moment, we are alone in here, as far as we know.
I'm going to cast light because I want to be certain of what I find.
All right, you cast light again.
Yeah. And then I want to, as we head further into the cave, I want to search the floors looking for obvious signs of people coming and going, or possibly of people being dragged, or of a non-human footprint.
All right. So,
This, this is survival.
this is survival. You can have my assistance with this. And you cast light, so we don't have disadvantage on it.
Yes, but I can't seem to roll over 10 at the moment, so I have survival's wisdom.
Wisdom, yes.
11.
All right. Well, the light does help with our endeavor as we're looking around and we are proceeding toward into the cave, you said?
Yeah.
All right. So we start moving. We have to move at half speed for you, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because it is all ice in here. And that does hamper us to a degree.
Well, I suspect they're going to spend at least a few minutes
Yes.
examining the camp, so we have a bit of time.
Yes. Unfortunately, it doesn't just hamper our movement, it also hampers our ability to search for tracks. Now, there is like almost like snow or frost on top of the ice a little bit, but it can't obviously snow inside a cave.
Yeah.
But because that there's only like faint layers of stuff that the footprints would crush into. Beneath that, it's solid ice, and beneath the ice, it's solid rock. So
Yeah.
find many tracks.
Okay.
It's just the best you can ascertain is there is possibly some degree of foot traffic here within the time period we know of.
Can you get Alice out for a second?
All right, I'll summon Alice.
Ask her to have a sniff about, see if she can find any sense of humans or humanoids.
Yeah, she lets me know that she is surprised by the sudden chill in the area. All right. Perception. All right. All right. So that's a 16. All right. She sniffs the air as she wanders back and forth. Well, she smells us. She smells the humanoids outside, obviously. Uh, there's a faint trace, is what she's saying, leading further into the cave.
Can she track it?
Well, she thinks she can,
All right, go
but
for it.
all right. So we're gonna follow her then.
Yeah,
She does say
okay.
it's faint, so it's probably said. By the looks of it, we are dealing with some people who literally did come into this cave and have not come out in quite some time.
Well, we'll follow about 10 feet behind her so we don't disturb anything.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we'll just head further on.
All right. Uh, as we move away from the mouth of the cave, the last thing we really hear from outside is them still milling about. We
So,
think they're doing something out there.
yeah. Well, they're not of interest to me.
No.
This might be.
Okay. So as we proceed into the cave,
Yep,
it does go a fair ways. It does kind of go down and forward into the hillside.
yep.
So it's not straight and it's not straight down, which is good for those of us who do not have magical boots that let them not slide on ice.
Yeah, I don't really want to go, tumbling
Yeah.
along.
So I assist you with that as we move along.
Yep,
So we are moving at half speed.
that's fine.
Alice is having a much easier time being a cat.
Got claws.
Yeah. Finds it cold in here though, obviously.
Stop whining. She's only whining your head, so
Yeah.
whine all you want.
All right. So we go along for quite some ways. The light behind us is unobservable for now. We can't. It's basically the only light source we have in here is your light cantrip.
Okay.
And as we proceed, we can see it starting to open up ahead, and we can move ahead to the next image if you want.
Alrighty.
All right. So clearly, we've come along quite a ways there, but we're coming along that passage.
Yep.
And you are quite about right about the estimations about 20 feet across. And it
Mm.
starts to open up further into this large chamber up ahead.
With apparently a fort.
Well, there, as we come into the mouth of this opening, the light spreads ahead, and we do see more of this chamber. And it is one other thing that's been of note. It's been
Yep.
getting progressively colder.
Well, I mean, assume it was below zero as soon as we entered.
Yes.
What are we dealing with here?
Uh, well, based on our experience in winter, we estimate we're getting close to minus 30.
That is bloody cold.
Yes. And it's, yes, and that's been getting colder as we've been going along.
Okay.
So Alice is not happy anymore. And I
Uh,
imagine you're not either.
no.
My boots protect me from these low temperatures still.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah.
I may have to change my stone to cold resistance here if this keeps up.
For the time being, your cloak is sufficient.
Yep. Just not happy.
Yeah, you also had to probably put the hood up though.
Yeah. All
All right.
right.
So
This a fort. Do we?
it's a building. The fort is as close as I could get.
Okay. So it's not a fortified structure with buildings inside. It's more like a building.
It's a large stone building, like our structure.
Okay.
This, yeah. And there are icicles hanging from up in the ceiling. The and this is it's solid ice in here at this point. There are even stalagmites of ice, or more accurately, stalagmites which are iced over.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are the proportions of this building? Does it look like normal sized people live in here or maybe slightly larger people?
This does not remind us of the cloud castle we saw with the cloud giant before. It
Yeah.
looks like humanoids or about humanoid-sized creatures would live here.
All right.
It does look like there's more than one floor, though.
My next question is, do I hear or see any of them?
All right, that would be a perception check.
I'm gonna get my owl out for this.
Okay.
Oh, there's a good number. 22.
All right. In here, for the moment, there isn't much that you hear. However, echoing down the corridor behind us, we hear the sound of, well, metal hitting ice and stone. We think they might be coming into the cave now.
Does this remind me of a Mythbusters episode where they're trying to get through a metal air duct with magnets?
It does sound quite loud. Yeah, there's a lot of metallic clang as you think someone loses their footing, and there's a bit of a uh, and probably a bit of a sliding of metal scraping on ice and stone, and that carries quite a ways in here,
They're obviously coming down and not being subtle. So
or just lost their footing.
what I want to do is head along this way and get behind some of these and see what they're going to do when they get here.
All right, you also rolled a 22, you said, right?
Yep.
All right, as the three of us are maneuvering over that way, we know Alice is just going ahead, just keeping her smell. The trace of the smell, by the way, she's saying is heading towards that structure.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
Yeah, we see movement on the ceiling.
Of?
Well, it looked almost like one of those icicles or icicle stalactites
Yep.
moved a little bit.
I look up.
Okay.
Alice out at the moment. Oh, Alice. I have my owl out at the moment.
Yes. All right.
Good dark vision.
Yeah, and you have a light source,
I have a light source.
so dark vision is kind of moot.
Do I recognize? Well, it's up there a ways. I'm not sure how high is the ceiling anyway.
Uh, at the entrance, probably only uh about 10 feet, but it's up quite a bit here. It's probably about 30 feet to the ceiling now. We've been going down a ways.
All right. Do I recognize? Uh, I'm thinking like, is it like a dark mantle kind of thing?
Uh, this would probably be an Arcana check on your part, I suppose.
Well, I have Arcana.
Mhm.
18.
All right, we're both looking up there. We both saw the movement, but it looked like an icicle, or like a chunk of ice moving on the ceiling. And looking about what we saw, we're thinking, we start to realize that there are creatures that can naturally camouflage themselves. Dark mantles are one of them, and there are other creatures that can pass as just ordinary structures, like like gargoyles, which we've encountered recently, can also do.
Yeah.
But imitating ice is a very small percentage of creatures can do that. And one of the ones that does come to mind that like cold environments and can cling to ceilings and can disguise itself just as a chunk of ice or an icicle is our ice mephits.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, once you said that.
We even with that high roll, even with the two high rolls, we can't really discern too much while up there which one of them are because it's a bit of a distance. But we think that's what we're dealing with, and we think they noticed the sound previously.
Okay, so they may not be interested in us.
Yet
All right.
we do know ice mephits tend to be quite violent and vicious creatures.
So want to hide behind one of these,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna keep my owl out for the moment, and her job is to solely look up and keep an eye on the methods.
All right, so we're hiding behind one of the pillars of
Stalactite.
ice, basically. Yeah. It is not see-through. Like I said, they are stalagmites which have frozen over.
And
That,
unfortunately, we're gonna have to keep Alice out as well.
Mhm.
and we're going to have to extinguish our lights.
All right, so you extinguish the light cantrip. So it goes dark in here.
Yep.
So the three of us are hiding behind the pillars of ice.
Yep.
Your owl is sat on top of one of them, and she's looking up, you said.
Yes, I want warning.
All right. So she does have dark vision, so this is fine.
Yep. So does your cat.
Yep. So does Alice,
Contrary to
which
what it says in the book.
the contrary to what it says, no, they fixed it.
Eh,
That was the one thing that they fixed in the new handbook edition that I agree with. Cats now
yeah,
have dark vision.
not a whole lot of things in there are
It
any
only
good.
took a decade for them to fix that.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, as for our friends from outside,
Yep.
well, all I can say is plate mail is really unfriendly when it comes to stealth. Because they went from having a natural 20, which would have been impressive, to having a. Do they have any? They definitely don't have stealth. No, they don't. They have a 6.
So they're clanging along quite noisily.
Yes. We don't hear any more falls, though. They seem to have.
Okay.
We also see some flickering light, like firelight. We think they have torches lit now,
Yep.
which does make sense because the guy we saw was human, and if the rest of them are humans, they too will not have dark vision.
I think we should hide.
All right, you want to roll stealth.
Yep. Back to rolling bad.
All right. Well, I rolled better than last time. Not by
Uh,
much.
I, 10.
10? Okay. So you have a 10. I have a 9.
We're on passive.
Well, the good news is all the knights are out of range at the moment.
Yep. And also, they're making a lot of noise.
They're making a lot more noise than us. All right, I'm gonna roll for the ice methods. Your owl notices them moving, and you can see now that we know what to look for.
Yep.
Your owl can spot them,
Yep.
and they've definitely noticed something in all this. However, they seem to be remaining pretty still at the moment. They can serve as ambush predators, we know, so they seem to be going for that for the time being.
Well, let me know if they're going to start heading towards our tin guys.
All right, minutes pass because it took us a while to get down here.
Yep.
So this is a relatively, I suppose, tense may not be the right word, but a long wait.
Yeah.
But eventually, we see uh, 5 figures in armor coming down
Okay.
uh, the stairs there. 4 of them have torches in one hand and have a long sword drawn in the other.
Yep.
And they are forming a square formation around the 5th individual in the center, who is dressed in exceptionally fine armor and livery with even a cape.
All right.
And he does not have a weapon drawn at the moment. He does have a sword at his belt.
Yeah.
Belt and but they all seem to be dressed for battle and are waiting doors and they're looking around. Says there's no sign of any of the one yet, sir. Says we says but and says unless they chose to flee, this is the only direction they could have come in. Says no, it says no. It says we searched thoroughly enough. It says I suspect someone came in this direction. It says well, we must find out what's going on. It says whether they are culprits or not, we must press forward. It says that structure up ahead looks like the only place anyone could take shelter in this frigid waste. He says
I have a sneaky suspicion. I gotta look for on their bodies. Do I see a holy symbol that I recognize?
roll a perception check at disadvantage. Oh, no, wait.
No, no.
Oh, you have an owl, and they technically have torches.
Yeah,
All right, fine. Perception check.
17.
You don't see any obvious holy symbols.
I don't know. Just got the paladin vibe there for a second.
just, just because they're knights.
No, just some holier than thou kind of attitude.
You might just be confusing it with the nobler than thou attitude that most nobles have.
Yeah, well, that too.
All right.
Something is shoved up somewhere on them.
Yeah, he says, let's proceed with some haste. I'm freezing to my armor, he says. Get this distinct feeling they weren't prepared for
An
the
ice cave in the middle of spring, yeah.
for minus 30 weather in spring.
Yeah,
Then again, neither were we.
no, it's quite true.
All right. It's at
Is
this
there
point that your
any kind
owl,
any kind of response from anything in this cave of what
I
we
was getting to that.
okay.
It's pretty clear at this point from your owl's warning that the Mephits have noticed, well, the quite obvious guys in armor.
Hey, they noticed the blazing torches, the clanging.
The knights are moving towards the temple, so they're moving into the chamber.
The temple.
Oh, I let that slip, did I?
Yes.
Well, it's a structure, so maybe it looks a little bit like a temple.
Sorry. All right. As the Mephits
The
move,
Mephits detach their claws from the ceiling and start flapping their wings stealthily.
okay.
We
I,
are aware of them at this point, so we can see what they're doing, but they are definitely moving quiet. There are 8 ice Mephits up there.
I whisper to you in
Yeah.
your ear, I don't care for these guys, but
Know them at all.
hmm?
We do not know them at all.
Yeah, I have no reason to. This is just one of those things where I don't really care for these guys. But I know that ice methods are evil.
Yes, neutral evil. Technically, they're the opposite alignment from you.
Yeah. And I don't really want them to
They will attack, and they will attempt to kill them for no other reason besides malice, because Mephits do not need to eat.
yeah, they're just
They're
extra
malevolent elementals, basically.
yeah, they're extra planar creatures that just like causing problems.
Yes. And it looks like they're about to attack, or getting ready to.
Yeah.
They'll probably try to set up some sort of ambush, which will be relatively easy for them in this area, even if they haven't noticed us yet.
Okay. I wish I had a few more meta magic points so I'd be able to pull this off, but I'm going to try and quietly, as far as my locale is concerned,
Yeah.
I'm going to target the center of the ice method mass with a fireball.
Are you casting subtle spell on Fireball?
Can't. I
No.
wish I could.
Yeah. All
But
right, so you're just going to cast Fireball.
I'm going to cast fireball, but I'm going to try and do it as quietly as I can so that the knights don't know where it came from. But I assume that the ice methods will.
I mean, Fireball goes.
Well, I don't know if there's any, but there is a
There is something that travels with Fireball.
yes.
But anyway, that's not important. The fact that they were all clustered together is probably going to work to your advantage here,
Yep.
because they're just getting ready to sit down and spread out around them to surround the knights. So I need to roll 8 dexterity saving throws for these things as you cast Fireball.
Only if they know it's coming.
You get a saving throw regardless. What's your spell save DC?
16. It's gone up.
All right, that's one success. Fail. 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 Success. Fail. Fail. And the last one, success. So 3 successes, 5 failures.
Well, I actually rolled a reasonable fireball for a change.
Oh, good. You rolled a reasonable fireball against challenge rating 1/2 creatures.
32 points of damage,
32. Okay.
which is more than Ice Method has.
Yeah. So
I
you.
think they're, I'm not sure if they're susceptible to fire or not, but I know they're not resistant to it.
All right. So you bring up your wand. You point it up high. You release the bead of fire, which travels in this dark place like a miniature comet or a tiny firefly.
Not even noticeable.
It's very noticeable. You didn't subtle spell this.
I can't.
You can't. There were verbal and semantic components to this spell
Yep.
in an echo chamber, basically.
Yeah.
So the fireball travels.
Can I roll stealth on this?
It doesn't matter.
Alrighty.
It hits the center of the mass and then explodes outwards into its full 20-foot radius ball of flame, which is almost coming down, which encompasses the ceiling and comes down quite a ways.
Yep.
And suddenly there's a massive amount of steam in here. So
Especially when the ice methods go off.
the ice mephits, 5 failed their saving throw,
Yep.
and the 3 succeeded, and they're all vulnerable to fire.
Oh, so they're all dead.
So all of them explode into shards of ice, which only hits things within 5 feet, and the ice will sublimate within the fireball. So it doesn't really matter. So there's a massive amount of flame and light and sound and steam as the incredibly hot magical fire well mixes quite violently with the extremely cold atmosphere in here. So there's now a
Uh-oh.
bunch of dripping water coming down from the ceiling,
Yep.
and yeah, the knights notice that. there's there's no way to make a fireball subtle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, but I was kind of actually I don't even know if they even noticed the methods, so they may just think I was trying to fireball them.
Well, so at that point, before we even have to roll for initiative,
Yeah, they're gone.
because they're gone, you're confident that the methods are dead, and you've destroyed all the icicles that were on that ceiling as well. So if there are any more of them that weren't moving, you
Yep.
got those too.
All right.
All right, let's see how they react to this.
Yep.
Surprisingly well.
Question is, did they notice that there were ice methods at all? That's my concern.
It says the noble, or the one who seems to be in charge, says, "What in the world was that?" Says, "What is this place?" Says, says his hand has gone right to the hilt of his sword. We can see, and the knights are looking around. Is like, "It came from over there, my lord." This is one of the points of the sword too. The all the pillars of ice that we are hiding behind. Says, and then the knight says, "Is that an owl?"
No, they have any ranged weapons?
Uh, they seem to have heavy crossbows strapped over their backs,
Let me know if anyone's going for a heavy
along
cross.
with packs and various other supplies that like standard adventuring gear.
Yeah.
Well, well, it didn't come from the owl. Says, clearly there's something else going on here. Says, I think we may have found where our visitors went. Said one of the other knights. The fourth one says, Duke Buckman says, stay close. We might need to defend you here.
Oh, good God. He's one of those nobles.
What?
Useless.
Duke? How do you know he's useless?
We may have to defend you.
Their job.
Yeah, well, usually if someone's competent, it says, yeah, we may need your help. Not we may need to defend you.
Right, Duke Buckman, as he's apparently identified,
Yep.
But it says, if you are there, come forth and prevent yourself. It says, if not, we will have to assume your intentions as hostile.
I'm going to say to them in a quiet, calm voice, not hostile, just saved you from some ice weapons. But I'm not coming out because I don't know your intentions.
Roll a persuasion check.
Come on, dice. Ugh, 6.
6. Ice, what? You get the distinct feeling that A, he doesn't know what ice methods are, and B, I'm just gonna let you tell this now. They rolled a natural one to spot the ice methods before the fireball went off.
That's what you get. No good deed goes unpunished.
They seem calm. They seem to be aware for the fact that you're. They seem to be slightly willing to accept the fact you're not hostile at the moment, despite the fact that you just did something they probably can barely understand.
I
Does-
say, well, if you want proof that
does-
I'm not trying to hurt you,
yeah.
I didn't aim that fireball at you. I mean,
That
uh,
sounds like an intimidation check, if I'm being perfectly honest.
that's proof positive because you know,
I chime in here before we enter combat. Yes, we did technically save you all from an ambush.
yes.
As it, Duke says,
But when
says,
that,
if your intentions are as noble as you claim, then step out of those shadows and present yourselves.
it's not our intentions we're concerned about. It's your intentions that I'm concerned about. You come clanking in here like a bunch of tin cans and prevent us from investigating this quietly, and all of a sudden you get the inhabitants all stirred up, and I have to defend you.
Yeah, this is really starting to feel like one of those situations where no good deed goes unpunished, especially from your point of view, I suspect.
Yes. So, pardon me if I don't step out so you can put arrows into my body
Quarrels.
or
They have crossbows.
bolts.
Yes. All right. So, fortunately, despite your somewhat, so we say, abrasive approach to this
Yep.
conversation, well, the knight says, "My lord, I do not think they mean any harm towards us." But we cannot expect dignity and grace from all in the realms. It says, perhaps we should hear
In
them out, as it
grace,
were.
excuse me, dignity and grace. I didn't go falling down a nice rampart and making tons of noise. And also, I still don't know your intentions.
Can you just roll an insight check for a moment, please?
I can't roll 5.
5. Okay. I pick up on it, and as I look to you and look over at the Duke,
Yeah.
Duke Buckman. He seems to wince a little bit at that. You think he might have been the one who fell?
So why
Says,
don't you actually, I assume you're here to figure out what happened to the abandoned camp outside, which is the reason why we're here as well, by the way. Why don't we go? What? Oh, sorry, not together, because I still don't trust you. Why don't we just see what's in that building over there?
the the head of the retinue of knights, or at least the one who's been doing most of the talking besides the Duke,
Yeah,
and the one who sounds the most reasonable.
yeah,
Well, definitely the voice of reason in the group at the moment there.
yeah.
My lord, I suggest we go along with what they say. There's no harm in it, and indeed, if they intended to attack us, they would have had ample opportunity. Or, if there were indeed these creatures they described, they could have simply left us to them.
I like you, they say, and I stand up, cast light on the end of my staff,
Yeah. Suddenly, there's very bright light because the torches are only dim light in here.
and I say, "Well, it's a good sign of a reasonable leader that they can pick quality and useful people to work with them."
Hmm.
Well, go on that.
All right, so we step out.
Yep.
I'm going to unsummon. Do you want me to unsummon Alice or keep her here? Because I'm pretty sure the trail is just leading into that building.
Yeah, I'm gonna get rid of the owl, my owl too, because
All right, so our familiars vanish, and then we step out.
yeah,
All right, so the two of us step out from where we were hiding, and we get a
sure,
good look. What?
sure, hiding.
Well, we technically were.
We were trying to
We were
hide.
trying to hide.
We
We were
gotta do
hidden from them.
better. Yeah, yeah, they suck. That's the only reason why we managed to hide.
So we get a better, clearer look at them now. There are five of them.
Yeah,
All of them are human. All of them are men.
yeah.
All of them are dressed in the same style of armor, except for the Duke, who again is has a few differences. First of all, he's not carrying a torch. He's dressed in very fine armor and livery, and he is. We,
More ostentatious.
yes, we also estimate he's probably about a decade and a half younger than the other four.
Oh, he's a kid.
Um,
Is he younger than us?
he probably would be. Yes, we suspect he might be 20,
So
maybe less.
our age.
A bit younger, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, bear in mind, I'm 5 years older than when we started now.
Yeah, you get that corrected at any point in time.
There's just no real point.
Yeah, I know. You live a lot longer than I do.
Yeah.
Well, wizards are going to live a long time anyway, so it's
Yeah,
really.
well, Genassis tend to live upwards of a century,
Yeah.
but still not, we don't, not by much, like 120 years.
Yeah.
5
Anyway,
years isn't as big of a deal.
all a matter of perspective.
Anyway, so now we are standing out in the open. They
Yep.
don't immediately drop their swords and torches and grab their crossbows, if that's what you're wondering.
I wasn't terribly worried as I had to step behind there again.
Yeah. All of them are similarly equipped, you notice, and they seem to be willing to hear us out for the time being.
I said, well, I'm going over there because I am very curious why there's an abandoned camp, and I'm very curious why there's trails of human, not so much footprints, but at least spoor of some kind heading towards that building.
Mhm. And just in general, we're curious about the fact there's an ice cave in the middle of nowhere, and now there's a really big structure in the middle of said ice cave.
Yeah, none of this fits.
Well, it might fit. We don't understand how it fits, though.
We'll find out. But the only way we're going to find out is to go there, I say.
Yeah. It says, very well. It says, knights. It says,
Oh, I wasn't waiting for them to answer. I
but
was walking.
so we're walking there, and it says, to that structure. He says through chattering teeth. You think he's getting now that you think the fireball actually did warm it up in here a little bit, briefly.
Yeah, very briefly.
Yes.
Everything's probably frozen already.
Yeah. It says to that building. It says quick march. He says.
All right. The exact reason why I didn't want Aldrich and what was her name, Thalia,
Yes.
to come along with us in Vern's Run.
They're no longer
Clang, clang.
attempting to be stealthy.
Yeah. Clang, 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 clang. It's like, God.
They are moving a bit more quickly now, you suspect because the Duke wants to get there before we do.
I'm not racing there.
No. They
Um,
are moving a bit more quickly, but they seem to have their footing a bit better this time.
all right. Anyway, if anything goes wrong, it'll go wrong to them first.
Yes, they are definitely outpacing us.
That's fine.
And we come to, well, what I refer to as this ancient stone edifice, which does appear to be some sort of temple of some kind.
Yeah. Can I hear anything above the clanking?
Um,
Do I get disadvantage on
yes,
this?
perception check with disadvantage. You can, my assistance will cancel out the disadvantage though.
11.
Sorry?
11.
We only hear the noises they're making. and the shivering of the guy who in plate mail who is really unhappy.
Yeah. Well, nothing I can do about
Yeah, much like everything else in this cave, the temple is iced over as well.
it. Okay.
We come into a big heavy set of double stone doors.
Stone doors.
Yes.
All right.
And the knights, well, the lead two knights, sheathe their swords for the moment, and they're grabbing onto basically the handles of the door, and they're going to try and force them.
Yeah, say, okay. Before they grab hold of the handles, I said, "Hold on. Is this your first day out? God, you just off of basic training. Don't do that. You're trying to get yourself killed." In that tone.
In that tone, all right? Roll a persuasion check.
Oh, not 20.
And that is reflected well in their reaction. It does take them a moment to realize that, yeah, this probably isn't the best idea, but they also have their lord here, and he's probably got some expectations of them. But for the moment, they seem to be waiting to see what you have to say. I'm
Why
going to
do we
roll a rejection for him now. No, that suddenly realizes that's probably, even this sounds like a good idea to him.
why do we check to see if there's any kind of traps, magical or otherwise, before, you get yourselves, I don't know, flash frozen?
He says, "All right." The Duke says, "Yes, you two come back here and let them do their search as the rest of this clearly seems to be their area of expertise." He's made an executive decision based on your natural 20. Suddenly he feels more confident in our ability to do this.
I'm gonna do an investigation check on the door.
With my assistance.
Yes, please.
All
And now I'm back to rolling crap. I tell you, it's just like all over the map. I gotta take these two die. I'm gonna swap them out for two more die because
So
these
why
two.
did you do that? What was the result of that roll? Bad.
Oh,
I'll
yeah, sorry. 13.
All right. We don't see any obvious traps from that roll. The door is not locked. They're heavy stone doors with again ice over them, which might make them difficult to open. And we notice that we think the door is like the temperature drops as we get closer to it even more.
So, do I feel that I am gonna start taking damage if I don't alter my stone?
See, in order to take cold damage, it's usually something very specific besides just low temperatures.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Basically,
probably.
at some point, your cloak is probably going to become insufficient if you don't do something.
Right. For the moment, I'm fine.
Yes, for the moment we're fine. But we get the distinct feeling from that roll. We think the interior of this temple might be colder than the interior of this cave. In fact, it
Okay,
almost feels like the cold is radiating from here.
now turn around to these guys. I
Mhm.
said, hands up for those of you who think it's cold out here.
They all raise their hands, including the Duke. I don't.
It's much colder in there.
All right, I assume you're hoping for a response from this. Your response says, "Well," the knights all look to the Duke and says, "Nevertheless, says we are here on a very important mission. It says we'll have to brave the cold. It says we braved it well thus far. It says we must enter the cave. We must enter this building. It says it
All
is
right.
the only thing that passes for shelter in here. Nevertheless,
It's not shelter. I step aside and say, well, there you go, guys. There's no traps that I can find.
you're gonna let them open the doors."
I'm not going to embarrass myself with my piddly little arms and open the door. I could impress them and waste a fifth level spell slot, but
Yeah,
I'm not going to do that either,
we're gonna let the knights open the door.
if they can.
All right, the two of them step up to the door. Yeah, there's two of them. They have advantage. No, that's flat enough. Yeah. All right, so that's a 15. All
Yeah.
right. They eventually just stop trying to open both of them and focus on one of the doors. And it's made of stone, but it's iced over, and several ice does crack and fall off as from the hinges and the doors. They manage to get it open.
Yeah.
All right, as it happens,
Yep.
well, you know how when there's a difference in temperature, like and it's very cold, your breath in the air will frost?
Yep.
Well, it's almost like that as this thing opens. It's not like a blast of freezing cold like you've seen me cast before, but
This is not a frost breath spell that's gonna freeze them solid.
no, but there's a difference in temperature between the interior of this temple and the cave outside here. It is colder in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is obvious as we feel it, and we can see the vapor in the air.
Okay. How do they respond to that?
Well, they're a little. They're. It's like it was difficult to open the door, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah,
they
but
seem to be proceeding.
they're not wincing from pain or anything.
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
They're very uncomfortable and very cold. They probably weren't expecting this.
Yeah.
Are we going to let them proceed first then?
I said, you probably should, let us go first. There's obviously something magical happening here.
Yes, yes. It's pretty obvious to both of us that there's magic at work at this point.
Long ago.
Yes.
Yeah. Does Mr. Bob there agree to that?
The Duke,
Duke Bob, yeah.
Duke Buckman.
Duke Bob.
All right. He seems to acquiesce to this, but it's like his body language says he's going to allow us to proceed into the temple first, but he doesn't like the fact that you're suddenly dictating terms, basically.
I don't care.
He is a nobleman. The noblemen are used to, being the ones giving orders, not taking them.
Yeah, well, maybe you'll live through this, boy.
Yeah.
All right, in we go.
In we go. We can move ahead to the next image.
All right.
All right, so we're coming in through the open door there
Okay.
at the bottom there. And as we enter this entry chamber, we notice several things.
Bodies.
Yes. That's not the first thing we notice. The temperature drops considerably
Okay.
to the point that I notice it.
Then that means I will start taking damage.
Yeah, it suddenly it feels like we're in the Arctic. Roll just nature check for both of us. That's high.
I don't have nature, but I have intelligence, so 16
All right. The temperature has just plummeted to probably more than twice what it was outside the cave, outside this temple.
minus 60.
Plus, well, minus, possibly.
Yeah.
Yes, I am noticing it's cold in here. Everyone is noticing it's cold in here. And there are, to no surprise, frozen and frostbitten bodies in here. The number is accurate. There are 6 of them.
What I'm going to do is, as a reaction, I'm going to do a little hop,
Yep.
cast Featherfall.
Yep. And you're going to set your stone to
Cold
cold
resistance,
resistance.
because
Yes,
whatever's
this is.
causing this is probably going to have some cold related damage anyway. So
Yes, and also at this point, you were starting to realize that, yeah, this was starting to reach the point where cold would probably get you taking damage and you'd be suffering life-threatening at this point.
I turn to my little tin cans that are just going to freeze solid here shortly. This is not meant to belittle you or to, um, you know, cast any shame upon you, but I would recommend that you wait outside.
All right, roll another persuasion check with advantage this time because this is suddenly very
11.
The Duke Buckman is suddenly having like shivering essentially and having difficulty speaking. Says the head knight, however, says, "My lord, I think we had best take their advice." It says, "At this point, we are definitely risking our lives in these Arctic temperatures."
I say that as I take off my cloak and put it into my bag. And seemingly not really affected by the cold.
Yes. Even with cold resistance, we both know it's cold in here, but it's not going to bother us for considerably longer than it would start to harm them.
Yeah. So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
We're we're the good guys.
I'm just going to roll. The knights seem to be weathering it okay. Not so the Duke. He's
If
uh,
you want,
he's
I,
suddenly starting to shiver quite a bit, and actually, he's like it looks like I mean, he rolled a natural one from that.
I said, look, I understand you're in charge,
Yeah.
and I am going to throw you a bone here. This gentleman, I point to the guy that's reasonable. I said, he seems to be handling the cold okay for the moment. If you want to send him and maybe another along with us, I'm fine with that. But you and part of your bodyguard or contingent should get out of here before you freeze to death.
Yeah. I just rolled some cold damage for him. He rolled a natural one.
Go, go
Yeah.
before we die.
It's not that bad yet, but yes, you can. We've seen magical cold cause harm to. You've seen me do it all the time to various creatures, including
Yeah,
humanoids. He's starting to suffer from.
yeah. He's inside a tin can.
Yeah,
I'd be sucking the heat out of him, I tell you.
there is some insulation in the armor. There is like some things worn underneath, but yes, it is not meant to be worn in this.
No.
Before the Duke can answer, his knights issue him out, and they take him back outside. They sit, and you hear them step away. You suspect they're probably going to get him out of this cave.
Okay. Stay.
Sorry?
Any of them stay?
No, they're all prioritizing their lord's life over everything else here. So it's just you and I at the moment.
Yeah, all right.
So you got what you wanted.
I wouldn't mind the reasonable guy staying, but that's fine.
Okay, so now that we are standing in this incredibly frozen room, and yeah, the floor is covered in ice and snow, and six frozen corpses. The number is accurate.
Oh, hold on a second. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I had something covering it. All right. We have lots to investigate.
There are also four tables set up in here
Yep.
which are also covered in ice and snow and
Yep.
various things and frost, that look quite similar to some of the tables we saw in the campsite outside.
Yes, they're obviously doing some form of investigation.
Also, we noticed some exits from this room. There are two archways on the left and right room there, side of the walls that seem to go outwards into wings.
Yep.
And there is a short staircase going down to what appears to be a heavy set vault door
And
at
I
the
assume that you're talking about this thing here.
yes.
Okay. Well, before we go any further, there's a couple things I want to check. First,
Mhm.
I want to check these bodies,
Mhm.
see if they died because of the cold. Also, I want to see if they are all like I assume part of this group, like
Yeah.
all dressed the same, maybe, or all researchers have some sort of insignia. And then we got to investigate these tables and all the other stuff. So
All right.
it's a lot of rolling.
Roll an investigation check.
Well, natural 20.
Natural 20. All right. Well, that's going to find quite a bit. Where do you
Yep.
want to start?
Uh, well, I want to check the bodies first.
All right.
I'm gonna need to do a med check on them separately, I suppose, to see if they died of
With a
exposure.
natural 20, I'll allow it to go off that.
Right.
They are frozen.
Yeah,
solid.
but do I figure
Are
that's what
also
killed them?
showing signs of frostbite.
But is that what I think was what killed them? There's no other
You
obvious
don't
sign.
see any other obvious wounds. It's
Okay.
like they just keeled over, basically, presumably from the cold. They're all dressed relatively similarly in
Yeah.
like adventuring gear for the most part.
No indications that they all came from
They're all
uh
dressed relatively similarly and geared up quietly, and most of this stuff here looks like similar equipment to what would be outside.
well, I can figure out I think that these guys are the guys from the camp.
Yes. Also, you do remember 6 bedrolls out there, so you think this is probably the entire expedition that was sent here.
Okay, so the other thing is,
Mhm.
what in the world kind of research were they doing that was so enticing that they stayed here and died of exposure?
That is a very good question.
Does my nat 20 give me any answers?
All right. There is, even with a natural 20, there is a lot here to look through. There,
Yes.
there are research materials on almost every desk here.
Yep.
There are a setup what looks like you recognize as an alchemy lab setup on at least one of these tables.
Yep.
And you also do notice that despite the incredibly low temperatures, there's a few vials on some of these tables which are not frozen.
Okay. Do I,
And
do I know why?
well, you
Probably
will note
magical.
that in at these temperatures, typically only magical liquid of some kind will not freeze.
True.
And they are in very small vials.
Okay. For the moment, I'll just take those.
All right. There are basically they're set up almost like in like uh I don't remember the proper name, but it's like a wooden like stand that test tubes would go in.
Yep.
I don't know exactly what that's called.
Stand.
Okay, that type of stand.
Yep.
There's a few of those set up. 4 of them are in one of them, and there are about half a dozen in the other.
So 4 and 6
Yes.
unfrozen vials.
Yes. The from that roll, you can see that the 4 that are in one group have a deep red liquid that looks relatively familiar to you, and the other one has a very icy blue color to it.
Red and ice blue.
Yeah. We also, as we're searching one of the tables there, we see a bunch of writing materials, and there's clearly some things here that are some paper here that is not ruined by the cold and possible damp at one point, possibly. It's not. And I find some scrolls here.
Sure.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
many scrolls?
3. And I do recognize these as being spell scrolls. Specifically from that roll, we recognize them as being arcane spell scrolls. So clearly, one of these people was versed in magic to a degree.
All right.
Not enough to survive this, unfortunately.
I'm gonna search the bodies, as gruesome as that is. I want to see if I can find the one that was versed in magic.
All right. I will ask for a new investigation check at this point.
Milk that 20 as far as I did, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Then we're gonna deal with a 21.
All right. Well, we look around, and the positioning of the corpses tells us that at least 4 of them died close to these workstations.
Yep.
So we start looking through there. And we actually do search the one who is near the area where I find the scrolls, which is this one here in the southeastern corner of the room.
This guy.
Yeah. And it does seem to be dressed up in some robes or robe-like apparel, but also does have some degree of armor built into it, which is unusual.
No, we've run into Mage Knights before.
Yes. We don't know, we don't recognize any Lyrian insignias on them. The structure of this temple or building does indeed resemble Lyrian structure too, when we've seen a bit.
Mhm.
Again, older, but probably not as old as the one that was on the plateau, which we think was pre-fall.
Okay.
Uh,
What world are they doing way out here? Hmm.
well, I just want for a perception check from each of us, please. Oh, I rolled a natural 20.
I won't bother telling you my number.
What was yours?
It's 13.
Okay, 13. Well, obviously our breath is quite warm and it mists in the air.
Yeah.
And as we start to approach, I put my hand on your shoulder and says, that can't be a good sign.
What?
Well, as our breath comes off and hits it, you notice it too as the eye of the corpse actually moves a little bit to look in our glance in our direction.
Okay.
And we hear it, and then we see movement from the body. And we hear the sounds of movement from behind us in the rest of the room.
All right. The bodies are getting up.
Yes, the one in front of us is indeed getting up, and the ice, which is frost is covering, doesn't seem to impede it in doing so. And as we look around the room,
Yeah.
all six of the frozen corpses begin to stand up.
Okay. So, I wish I kept the noble here now. It would have been funny to see him pee his armor. Okay, we're here.
Yes, we are by that one.
So as they're stumbling up, I want to quickly move to here.
All right, we are going to move through that alcove. There is no door there, by the way. It is open.
Okay, I know, but is there a corridor there,
Yeah,
or am I
great.
getting
We can
this?
attempt to move that way.
Okay, when I get there and I look, is there a corridor there?
Yes, there is a short corridor with a wing, and at the end of it, we see a staircase.
Going
As
down?
as we leave this creature's melee range,
Yeah.
you want odds or evens?
I always stick the same. Might as well.
It's going for me.
All right, this is weird.
It takes a swing at me.
Okay.
That's a 16 to hit.
You don't have mage armor on.
I don't have mage armor up yet. No, we acted quite quickly again.
Yeah.
All right, so as you get up and as we get to leave, you are able to move.
Yeah.
Well, you suddenly out of the corner, I see this thing lunge up with its arms and basically wrap them around me.
You could cast shield.
I will cast shield, yes, because this seems like a bad idea. So I bring my hand up, I cast shield to prevent this from happening, which is good.
Yeah.
And it does look like it was attempting to grab a hold of me, almost in some sort of embrace, as the shield comes into being, and I deflect it off with the the protective magic as we move.
Yeah. I don't think you want to be held by this thing because it probably
I
is.
actually do knock it back down as it is in the process of getting up to attack us. The other five are to their feet.
All right.
And well, we've seen zombies in our adventuring career,
Yeah.
and we are currently at the archway there, and they are coming towards us, and we can see a staircase at the far end of the hall. And this seems like a good place to take our break.
Yeah. Before we roll initiative, there you go.
Yeah. All right, so we'll be back here in a few minutes to deal with this.
All right.